Speaking today with author Dilip Hero, he is the author of this book, After Empire, The Birth of a Multipolar World, which basically talks about the waning influence of the United States across the globe and even here within this country. Thank you for joining us today, Mr. Hero. You earlier spoke about this interesting exchange between President Bush in 2008 and President Putin in 2008. Can you tell us about that a little bit?
Yes, certainly. I think, what's interesting is, we know that America was the sole superpower, after the break-up of the Soviet Union in December 1991. But I think that they reached a particular point, and then they're on a decline. And of course, in a way, decline started with the invasion of Iraq, but that was diffused. But there are very specific event, just like Berlin Wall fell, you can say, November 9, 1989. So a specific date that I have in mind for America military power on the decline is very easy to remember, 080808, August 8, 2008. Why? Because on that day, President of Georgia decided that he wants to use military power to get back the breakaway province of South Ossetia. He ordered bombarding the capital of South Ossetia, and of course the Russians responded, shall I say, in a fairly strong way. And as it happened, President George W. Bush was at that time in Beijing. And this is what he said: bullying and intimidation are not acceptable ways to conduct foreign policy in the 21st century. These are the words of George W. Bush. And then later on, correspondents asked Prime Minister Putin, did you not overreact? And this is what Mr. Putin said: what did you expect us to do? Respond with a catapult? We punch the aggressor in the face as all the military textbooks prescribe, unquote. Bush said these words, but he did not send a single soldier to go and help the Georgian president to get back the breakaway province.
So that kind of starts everything off here. We're talking about decline of the United States and of American power. We are at this point talking about the decline of America in many different ways. So let's talk about that. Let's go down that avenue. What kind of decline would you first like to talk about?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the power basically has four dimensions. There is the military power, there is the economic power, and economic power also includes what is called knowledge industry, information technology, blah, blah, blah. And then, of course, you have political diplomatic power, and then you have social cultural power, which is soft power. When the Lehman Brothers collapsed on September 15, 2008, that was defeat of Reaganite capitalism, because capitalism is a different variety. European capitalism is different from Reaganite capitalism, which is different from the state-directed capitalism of China. And the Reaganite capitalism collapsed on September 15, 2008, and then to make sure it does not get into great repression, under Bush, they took what are socialist measures, which were actually first advocated by British economist Mr. Maynard Keynes. Okay, so that's one. Then we come to political and diplomatic situation, and what follows always when you economics is starting foundation. When you build up your economic power, then it translates into political diplomatic power. There's a time lag, and you can see in the case of China, because China is the one. Last year, their GDP went up by more than 9%. This year, they are going to have 11% increase in GDP. And so they are getting the world out of the recession, the kind of a job which the U.S. used to do before. Reagan in 1981, when he became president, he started to deregulate, you see, because it was in the 1930s under Franklin D. Roosevelt, President Roosevelt, that these measures were taken to control free market economies, because they had again gone out of control, and the Wall Street crash we know about 1929, and the depression and 25% unemployment and so on, and these were corrected by introducing what one can only call socialistic measures, see, and so they were all in place, and again And until Reagan came in and he started to deregulate all of these things, and then that process continued even during the days of Bill Clinton. It was under Bill Clinton that Siegel Act of 1933, which said investment banking should be totally separate from depository banking. And that division was destroyed. Therefore, big banks, they could take your my money and play the stock markets with your my money. Okay, and that is why we had a crisis. And they also created what we call synthetic money, and the facts are that there were 4 times more money because 3 times more, derivatives were created than the actual money. So you see, that was the failure of the market economy, free market economy.
What about diplomatically? How is America's influence diplomatically across the world waning?
Yeah, I think, you see, again, very, very good example. I mean, see, in very important factors, like, say, climate change. Because we had this gentleman from Crawford, he was an oil man. He refused that, the warming of the planet is taking place because of human activity. And so, therefore, there was a complete, ban, because he was essentially protecting the interests of the oil industry, oil and gas industry. Okay, and so of course he's gone. Then we have a far more intelligent person who is more open, etc., etc. And so he has said, yes, we have a problem. But when he goes to Copenhagen, what does he do? He says, China didn't come around to go for exact figures that do this. You see, because President Obama knows he will not get 6-0 votes in the Senate. Any such treaty has to be passed by the Senate. And if you are a filibuster, and Republicans are totally against it, and just a couple of dithering, wavering Democrats, and it will not get through. So I'm talking about diplomacy. So instead of, because he can't openly say, listen, fellows, I am innovative because I've got my IQ is 192. Okay, I understand everything, and so things have changed. I'm open to this. But he has to get the whole thing through the Senate, and Senate he will not get it. So therefore he finds some excuse. See, the Chinese are not coming on board. So now if he's saying to the Chinese do something, what is he offering them in return? Zilch. And then he says, China bad, it's not me, China. But see, so what I am saying is that diplomatically, even when on the outside it looks like, America being the big polluter, maybe is number 2, close to number 1, China, is not able to give a lead on this subject.
Let's go to the military side of things. You said the U.S. military power is waning as well. Yeah. Describe how so.
I think, yes. You see, the Pentagon's doctrine has always been, you have a fight with somebody, use overwhelming military power. Put all the way up there. I mean, that was very properly actually executed in the 1991 Gulf War led by Bush Sr. He put so many soldiers because Powell was in charge of the military, and this was his, okay, that's fine, okay. But now what's happened since then that we have asymmetrical warfare, i.e., that is, IED, improvised explosive devices, okay. So they are completely confusing the superpower or military power, because they can't fight directly, but they can sabotage it in the way that IEDs are doing. They started in a big way in Iraq, now in Afghanistan, practically every day so many IEDs go off. So that's asymmetrical warfare, that's one. Secondly, more importantly, the Chinese. And the Chinese know that there's no way that they can actually, in real life, within 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, be equal to the Pentagon's technological development and fighting with the robots, all kinds of things. Therefore, they are looking for cyber warfare. Because once you have control of the computer system, you can stop water supply, electric supply, and nothing will work. So the Chinese are not going to actually say, okay, man, at some point you have 100 tanks, we will have 101 tanks. No, that's okay, of course you have to have that, but ultimate fight will be in terms of cyber warfare.
The last level of influence of the United States, you said, is more the soft influence, the social influence, and you're saying that's in decline as well.
People in the world have options which they did not have before, and what we actually hear are what news, there's so much news, what news is picked up, how it is processed, and how it reaches our eyes and ears is very important, because on that basis we decide what's right, wrong, public opinion is formed. Okay, so if there are channels other than CNN and the BBC, then naturally the power of America or English-speaking world goes down. I mean, that's already happening. The fact I'm sitting here, talking on Russian TV, or it's in English, go all over the world. I mean, that is a proof in itself.